Hey, Chef Austin here with everythingkitchens.com, and this is our All-American Pressure Canning 101 guide. We'll take a look at what pressure canning exactly is, what foods you need to pressure can, and how to get started canning with your All-American pressure canner. Let's check it out. Although this video might be helpful, it is not a replacement for the manual. We do recommend fully reading the manual so you know all the safety precautions to take with your All-American pressure canner. So what exactly is pressure canning? It's similar to standard water bath canning, but inside of a pressure canner, water's boiling point is brought to 240 degrees Fahrenheit instead of the standard 212 degrees. Molds, yeast, and harmful bacteria are destroyed in low acid foods at this temperature, allowing them to safely be consumed and stored without refrigeration. This brings us to what foods absolutely need to be pressure canned. Low acid foods with a 4.6 pH or higher must be pressure canned. This includes vegetables like carrots, green beans, peppers, corn, potatoes, and other non-pickled vegetables. This also includes all meat and fish, as well as mixed high and low acid foods like chili, soup, or mixed vegetables. Aside from the canner itself, you'll need a few essential tools to get started pressure canning. Let's take a look at those. Choosing the proper jars for home canning is important. Choose jar sizes that are appropriate for the serving size you want to eat. Also, always use new, unused canning lids. Good condition bands are okay to reuse. Handling hot jars and extracting jars from boiling water can be dangerous, but using jar lifters can prevent burns and allow for a safer experience. You absolutely need a jar lifter if you're going to be pressure canning. Filling jars with narrow openings can be messy, but using a canning funnel can make it much easier by streamlining the process. A bubble freer or popper lets you scrape the sides of your jars, freeing any trapped air easily. The bubble freer also acts as a headspace measuring tool, letting you easily see if you need to add or remove food from your jar before securing the lids and the bands. If you're nervous about using your All-American for the first time, you can actually just do a test run. And a test run is basically following a recipe all the way through, but you don't use any jars or any food in your canner, you're only using water. And what that's going to do, it's going to help you get comfortable with using your All-American canner. From installing the lid correctly to getting it up to pressure, finding that sweet spot on the stove and maintaining pressure and depressurizing. It's going to get you much more comfortable with the entire canning process so you can feel confident when you do start canning. Fill a large stock pot a few inches from the top with water. Place a canner rack in the bottom of the stock pot and bring it to a simmer. With a jar lifter, place the empty canning jars into the simmering water. You can keep the jars in the water until you are ready to start filling. This keeps the jars hot, so when you put hot food or liquid into them, they will not break from thermal shock. Before each use, hold the lid up to the light and look through the vent pipe. If you cannot see the light through the vent pipe, use a paper clip, wire, or pipe cleaner so that the opening is clear and unobstructed. Afterward, rinse with hot water. Apply a thin film of olive oil on the edge of the inside of the cooker where the inside wall begins to bevel out. Use just enough oil to wet the edge, but not enough to actually see it. Fill the pot with about 3 inches of water and place the canning rack in the bottom. Bring the water to a simmer. Lift a hot jar out of the stock pot with a jar lifter and carefully pour the water back into the stock pot. Place the jar on a dry towel on your counter. Place a canning funnel into the mouth of the jar and fill the jar with the prepared food according to your recipe. Use the bubble freer to remove any trapped air by placing it between the food and the side of the jar. Gently move the food away from the side of the jar to release any air that might be trapped. Check for headspace and add any additional food or liquid if necessary. Wipe the rim of the jar with a clean cloth dipped in distilled white vinegar. Any food on the rim can cause the seal to not function properly. Using the magnetic lid lifter, place the lid on the jar. Do not touch the bottom of the lid as this can transfer bacteria to your food. Install the band and screw it on until it's fingertip tight. Using your jar lifter, place your filled jars onto the canner rack until the canner is full. Jars should not be touching each other. You can place a secondary canning rack on top to add a second row of jars to the canner. Jars on the top rack do not need to be submerged in water. Using the handle, set the lid on top of the canner base so that the arrow on the lid is 1/4 inch to the right of the notch mark on the bottom. Turn the cover clockwise to line up the arrow with the notch mark. This will engage the bayonet clamps under the lugs. Grab 2 opposite wing nuts, one in each hand, and flip them up above the lid into the notches. Gradually and evenly tighten the 2 opposite wing nuts by turning them clockwise. At that point, make sure the gap between the cover and the bottom is even under the 2 wing nuts by getting an eye-level view of the gap. Never tighten just one wing nut at a time. If the gap is not even under the 2 opposite wing nuts, loosen the side that is low and tighten the side that is high until the gap is even. Repeat these steps until all of the wing nuts are secured. Turn each wing nut one more time to ensure that they are snug. Hand tighten only. Do not use a wrench or any other tool to tighten your canner. Double check the gap between the lid and the bottom to make sure it is even all the way around. If it is not, you will need to undo the wing nuts and repeat the previous steps. Increase your stove's temperature setting to a high heat until a steady column of steam escapes from the vent pipe. Set a timer for 10 minutes and continue to steam. This removes the air from the inside of the canner. After 10 minutes, place the pressure regulator weight onto the vent pipe with the correct pressure based on your recipe and altitude. You can read the dial gauge to help you approximate the pressure inside your canner. Once you see the gauge approaching your desired pressure around 2 to 5 psi away from your target pressure, reduce the heat to low/medium low and allow the canner to slowly reach pressure. Once you hear and see the first jiggle or rock of your pressure regulator weight, you can start your timer for your recipe. At this point, you'll need to ensure the pressure is maintained. You'll need to find the sweet spot on your stove's temperature setting to maintain the correct pressure. In very small increments, adjust the heat on your stove until the pressure regulator weight jiggles only 1 to 4 times per minute. If you have a constant jiggle, reduce the heat and wait a couple of minutes to see if that minimizes your jiggles per minute. If you do not hear any jiggling, your canner is not up to pressure and you need to raise the heat. Do not go off the pressure gauge. The weight jiggling is more accurate. When the food has cooked at the proper pressure for the correct period of time according to your recipe, turn off the heat source. Let the pressure cooker naturally release its pressure. To do this, you don't have to do anything. Do not touch the pressure cooker or remove the pressure weight. Leave it undisturbed until the pressure gauge reads 0. This can take anywhere from 10 to 30 plus minutes. Do not attempt to speed cool the canner by running it under cold water, setting it in a cold environment, or manually jiggling or removing the pressure weight. This can cause jars to break, liquid to siphon from jars, or it can also cause improper sealing of food, making it unsafe to consume. Once the gauge reads 0, remove the weight using an oven mitt. Wait 2 minutes, then unfasten the lid. Lift the lid away from you with the top handle to prevent steam burns. Remove the jars with your jar lifter and place them onto a cooling rack or large towel on your kitchen counter. Let the jar sit undisturbed for 12 to 24 hours. Check the lids to make sure they have sealed. Any unsealed jars should be refrigerated and used within the next week. Remove the metal band, wipe it down with a clean, damp cloth, and hand tighten it back onto the jar. Be sure to label each jar with the contents of the jar and the date your food was canned. Store it in a cool, dark, and dry place. For best tasting results, eat canned food within 1 year. After the canner is cooled, you can use a mild dish soap to wash the inside of the canner and the lid. Hand dry after washing and store the pieces together for convenient canning during the next harvest. If you like this video, be sure to give us a like and subscribe to Everything Kitchens for more great content. If you had any questions at all, be sure to leave us a comment or contact us at everythingkitchens.com. We'll see you next time. What does this thing do? That's a common question. Why does it roll by itself? Why does it have infinite energy? It's cool for a long time.
It is.
I'm impressed.
No way it's gonna stop right before.
Oh! Oh! Oh!